Hi everyone, welcome to Activating Genius, how to get your child into a top college and set for a happy, successful life. Today we have the good fortune of interviewing Alexis Avila. Frequently quoted by U.S. News and World Report, Alexis founded Prepped and Polished to help elementary, secondary, college level, and adult students improve their grades and test scores. While tutoring for several small and large commercial test prep companies, Alexis envisioned growing his own independent educational services company run entirely by educators for the love of education. Alexis and other members of the Prepped and Polished team have traveled a collective 100,000 miles to educate students in person, collectively working with well over 1,000 families. Described by students as supportive, patient, and enthusiastic, Alexis has helped students and adults gain confidence, maximize their academic potential, and achieve dramatically improved grades and test scores. Welcome, Alexis.
Thanks for having me today, Sonia.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your work with high school students, particularly in, things like SAT or ACT prep. I think that would be a good place to start.
Sure. I've been a full-time tutor since 2002 and a part-time tutor since 1999. I've worked one-on-one with students from grades K through college, mostly in the areas of test prep, SAT and ACT test prep, SAT subject tests, and academic subjects. And the reason that things are working really well is because we have a tremendous experience, and also because we only tutor students one-to-one, so we can address the students' needs and custom design sessions to tailor the individual student.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I think I've seen research that shows that one-on-one tutoring does help increase test scores for the SAT and ACT and so forth. Can you tell us a little bit? Yeah, tell us a little bit about what kind of approach you take. I know, different tutors or tutoring companies have different kinds of approaches. Some of them are strategy, and some of them involve a lot of repetition. What's your approach?
Our approach is what works well for us is balance, a well-balanced plan that keeps a student as stress-free as possible, if that's even possible. So a lot of students coming to us have very busy schedules. They're overbooked, and what works well for them is a once per week session that lasts about 2 hours, and then given an individual independent homework assignment that they can work on their own in between sessions. So about a 2-hour homework assignment. If we do any more than that, sometimes I find that it stresses a student out quite a bit. During our sessions, we work on test-taking strategies, drills, and then if the student has some gaps in knowledge, we work on foundation, reading comprehension, and math enrichment, math skills, math vocabulary. And when a student really has a lot of need, we tend to spend a little bit more time by just starting earlier than other students. Okay.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Tell us about what you recommend during the summertime, because that's often a time when students, have more free time and they don't have to worry about homework. And do you still stick with the same kind of schedule of 2 hours once a week and then homework in between, or do you do more intensive kinds of tutoring?
Well, if a student's first test date is fall after the summer, then it's important to start in the summer, because you really want to start about 3 months before a test. If a student starts the spring of junior year, Then what I recommend during the summer to do is take a practice test, a full SAT, take a 3-hour SAT practice test under time conditions, and also take an ACT one to really determine which is your better testing, so that you don't have to overwhelm yourself and take multiple tests. And you can just stick to one, because colleges accept either the SAT or ACT today. And then also in the summer is a good time to really read every day, just so it can kind of bolster your reading comprehension score, and also work on any areas that you need improvement on by looking at your practice test result. So if you really struggle with algebra, it's a good time to maybe brush up on your algebra skills. Just do a lot of like repetition, drill work on a daily basis, so that when you're ready to start, test prep with a tutor or on your own, you could really just kind of work on strategies and practice test sections.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Can you speak a little bit about some of the new changes with universities who are not requiring like the writing portion of the SAT or ACT? There's been a lot of publicity about that over the last several months.
So basically, what's going on is that some colleges are deciding not to, are asking students not to take the writing portion, and in lieu of that, they'll accept a junior year or senior year English paper, and that's pretty much what I know right now. So right now, as it stands, you have an option whether to take the SAT with essay or without. But just colleges are actually doing students a favor now and just saying, look, don't take it with. Instead, you can just submit one of your papers from high school.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've had a lot of questions about that recently from students. And it seems like it would be a lot more work for the admissions officers. So it's interesting to see some of these universities requesting papers. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about the student who struggles with test anxiety, because I've seen that come up quite a bit. I had one student who actually I think she was diagnosed with anxiety in high school, and she would always get, more time for exams in her classes and so forth. And then one day she took the ACT, and she was sick, so she really wasn't thinking she was going to do very well. She just thought she was going to go in and basically, do a bad job because she was ill. And what ended up happening is she got a 35 on the ACT that day. And so what we realized is her anxiety, there was no anxiety because she didn't have any expectations. And that totally relieved her from that stress and allowed her to function optimally on the exam. So I'm curious about your suggestions about relieving test anxiety.
Well, first of all, that's an amazing story. What I find that students with test anxiety tend to catastrophize situations, I know a good tutoring technique if you're working with a student like that is just bolster their confidence, and then also just teach them to process what to expect the week leading up to the test, the day before the test, the day of the test, so that there's no major surprises, and they can it's almost like they'll feel like they've done that before. Take lots of practice tests. Tends to work. I find that students who really stress out, having a stress ball, during tutoring, tends to kind of just and teaching that student how to do belly breathing exercises, getting down to the physical and just trying to teach them just to relax a little bit more. But I love your story because it's kind of a point that I think that goes unnoticed. It's just like the fact that like inadvertently, like you don't like really think about what to expect, what you're gonna encounter, and in effect, you actually end up doing better. I mean, sometimes we can apply that to many different kinds of examples in our life. But if you overthink things, sometimes you tend to get a little bit more anxious. But I do find that overall, a lot of students don't have the fortune like your student did, and having just practical practice and teaching that student what to expect tends to help them overcome their anxiety a little. So, for example, we have students come in on Saturday mornings to take a practice test under proctored time conditions on Saturday mornings, just to kind of mimic the test day environment. And and it's not just them with a pencil and a paper; it's their peers next to them. Right. Coughing, sneezing, with their calculators clicking, and just having like the sights and sounds kind of just shows them kind of what to expect. So when test day arrives, there's not really major surprises, which can trigger a lot of anxiety, major surprises.
Right. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Can you tell us a little bit about score choice and super scoring? Do you have any advice on that?
Well, a lot of schools, not all of them, will take your best sections from multiple sittings and piecemeal them to create what is a super score. So basically, because a lot of colleges do that, and first of all, colleges tend to do that, I find, because it tends to kind of increase their score averages for U.S. News and World Report. Right. It makes them look better. So it is kind of a business decision. But also it benefits the business, it benefits the college, but it also benefits the students. So use it to your advantage. If they're going to do a super scoring type situation, then it works to your advantage to oftentimes take multiple tests. But if you tend to be anxious prone and the thought of taking multiple tests might be daunting, you'd probably consider just taking it once or twice. So.
Okay. Great. And what is your recommendation in terms of students who, for example, they're in high school, they're taking a class, and it looks like they just are not going to be doing well. How can they improve their grades in class? Because sometimes I hear a lot of students complain about, oh, well, this teacher is not good, and, I don't think on a transcript there's any room for those kinds of things. So what are some of your recommendations on how students can do better in class, especially when the teacher is a tough grader, for example?
Well, you have several options. One of them is, and it's not like my number one option, but if the teacher is going to get in the way of you, and if you work hard and the teacher is still going to get in the way of you getting, a decent grade or better, then you might want to consider like maybe switching classes, dropping down or dropping down a level. But that's not like my number one option. My number one option is probably work through the class and try to make it work. And, go to your teacher, try to figure out if there's any extra bonus points that you can, extra credit opportunities for you. And that will show initiative. The teacher likes those kinds of things. Go to after school hours. A lot of students don't take advantage of that. And see if you can kind of like go over a quiz that maybe you didn't do as well on, and maybe get some tips from the teacher on how to prepare better next time. And then I also recommend getting a tutor if you can afford one. And if you can't afford one, your high school might have peer tutors. But I mean, obviously I'm biased on this, but I really do believe that a one-on-one tutor would really help you. Just kind of study a little bit better, and also encourage you to do better, because academic self-confidence can really plummet sometimes when you have a tough grader in your class. But I think a multi-pronged approach works. One is just, contacting the teacher, just telling the teacher that you really care about the class. If you have to get your parent involved, that's okay too. Or, I have parents who, help their student advocate and say, look, my student's really working hard in the class. What can we do? And it shows the teacher that, again, don't overlook this student. And then another thing is have a tutor and just study harder. And I think that's probably the best way to kind of overcome some of those challenges.
Yeah, I think those are some good suggestions, especially talking to the teacher and maybe even getting the parent involved. Although I've heard it's pretty tricky with the parents' involvement because sometimes teachers don't like that. You just have to be very careful.
I couldn't agree with you more. You have to be careful, and you have to be nice. I mean, you can't be a parent, and this is, holding the parent accountable. You just can't be aggressive or, overly assertive. You have to kind of just be like my student's really enjoying your class, kind of a head scratcher. He studied really hard, for 10 hours this weekend, got a C-. Look, any tips, would be appreciated. I'd love to come to your after hours. It's all about how you phrase things. I mean, teachers have,
Yeah, like you said, they're overworked, and their communication, that helps quite a bit.
Sure.
That's very, very helpful. Yeah, that's great. What do you think about things like study skills and speed reading? Do you have any recommendations on those kinds of things?
Well, study skills is, I find that half the battle to doing better with study skills is organization. So you have to be, students who don't have good organizational habits tend to have poor study skills, I find, collectively. So it all starts with having a really good calendar or homework planner, so that you can kind of really divide your assignments up, know kind of what to do first, second, third, prioritize. Also, you're going to be doing a lot of your studying at home, and I can tell you what not to do. You don't want to be in your room with your text chat open, listening to music, and all the while Facebook is on your computer screen while you study. You can only concentrate with one thing at a time. So having a really zen working environment is really important. So you want to clear out your desk. Have your homework planner, laptop, and notebook on there, pencils, pens, and then just kind of, organize yourself. Take good notes in class is really important too. Taking effective notes, and if you have to take a note-taking class, you can have a tutor teach you, some really good habits with that. But those note-taking habits, good note-taking habits, will lead to better test and quiz scores. So it's important.
Like Cornell note-taking is one example.
Yeah.
Something you use. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very helpful, I feel, especially because you can cut down on the amount of time that you have reviewing the notes if you take good notes. So
yes.
That's very helpful, definitely. Good. What are your thoughts about students taking AP exams and SAT subjects, tests, and so forth? Do you recommend students take as many of those as possible, or just minimally as necessary?
Yeah, I mean, I suggest that if you're applying to, some of the Ivy League schools, I mean, this is your domain. You really have to push yourself. Your competitors, your competition, they're going to have taken multiple AP and exams. I mean, I have students who have like 5 or all their classes are AP exams. But some of those students that I'm talking about don't really sweat too much and they enjoy it. That's the difference. If you're going to be a type of student, if you take 5 and you're going to be anxious and have heart palpitations, you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention to your stress level, or because you're not going to perform as well. And there's also, remember, like these colleges are looking for an overall, thorough academic portfolio. They're not just looking for AP exams, but you're going to have a minimum number if you're going to get into those top schools. You do your SAT subject test to just demonstrate mastery of that material. So if you're excellent at chemistry, I mean, you should be taking an SAT chem exam, getting a 700 plus if you're going for top schools. And then some schools you just have to pay attention. They require a few of them. So.
Yeah, I find that a lot of guidance counselors don't actually encourage students to take these tests. And then they find out after the fact when it's too late, or maybe
that's too bad.
Ago. Yeah, I find that quite a bit. So I encourage my students to take them right after they've taken a class.
Good. Yeah, great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But it's a lot of testing. There's the subject test, the AP exams, SAT, ACT, and then you have to consider the writing portion. So it's quite a bit, for students. And these days, I'm also finding that there's students with ADD, and there's also students who are considered twice exceptional. Do you have anything to say about how you can help those students?
Yeah, so ADD is kind of a broad term. So I divide it into inattentive type ADHD, the type that gets easily distracted, and then with the hyperactive type, so like the high energy, talks a mile a minute type student. So I mean, basically for the inattentive type, I recommend doing 15-minute stations. So if you're prepping for an SAT, and you're prepping for like an hour, you do like 15 minutes of reading, 15 minutes of writing. Just kind of mix it up so your focus kind of stays on task. And do your homework in daily small chunks as opposed to longer stretches.
Take more breaks, you mean?
Yeah. Yep. Take more breaks just to kind of recharge the batteries. And then for also the hyperactive type student, the talks a mile a minute type student, I find that these students have a hard time like initiating tasks. So, teaching the student how to outline an essay in advance before actually writing it is a good tip. Proactively underlining and marking reading passages. And also getting rid of technology. I know that they say that, like work in a traffic-free, noise-free area of your house. So when it's study time, tell your friends that, you'll be back after your session. So let them know, and then turn your cell phone off, and then also ditch the music because, I mean, it's when you take an SAT, it's not like Beethoven's going to be playing over the loudspeaker. So you want it quiet, and you want to simulate those conditions. And so, ditch the music, and those are some tips.
Okay, that's very helpful. Tell us any last pieces of advice you would like to give to high school students these days.
Basically, advice is to don't procrastinate. So I do a lot of test prep and tutoring, one-on-one work with lots of different kinds of kids. The common advice I can give to any type of student, high level, low level, is take your time and make sure you have time to prep. Don't come to somebody a week before the test and say, okay, I'm ready to study. You want to study about 3 months before a test, and if you have a lot of things to work on, you want to study probably about 6 months before a test. And while you're preparing for that test, you want to try to get used to getting up early in the morning. Too, a lot of students are wake up late on weekends. But on test day, you're going to have to wake up early. It's going to be cold out if you live in a cold climate. And, you're going to need to learn how to use your brain early in the morning on a Saturday. So definitely kind of acclimate yourself to those conditions and take practice test sections on Saturday mornings leading up.
Right. That's very good advice, actually. I've never heard that one before. That's very helpful. Yeah.
Sure.
I understand, Alexis, you have a free gift for our listeners today?
I do. I'd like to give away for free my Test Prep for Students with Learning Challenges ebook. So it's 30 pages, 20 to 30 pages long, and it goes through 7 different learning challenges, learning disabilities that a student might have, and how to overcome those struggles, and also kind of recommends which test, ACT or SAT, to consider based on your learning challenge.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sure
my pleasure.
Will love that ebook. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alexis. It's been wonderful to have you in the TeleSummit. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.